How's it going, Twitch? My name is Skull, and on behalf of EastAsiaSoft, welcome to today's stream. Today is Sunday, which means that it's time for me to continue my playthrough of SeaBed, a Yuri visual novel. I have been enjoying this game quite a lot, and I am looking forward to seeing what happens next. So, it's impossible for me to bring you guys up to speed. Watch the full series on YouTube if you want to know what's going on, if you want to guess what's going on. And to everyone who's watching this on YouTube, thanks. And I'm sorry that you have to pay attention to my voice. So, just now starting chapter 4. Sachi, like, that is her, I do not care anymore face. She just can't put up with Takako. The rays of the sun filtered in through the marmalade-colored western window of the kindergarten, elongating the shadows of the three of us inside. I held a picture book in my hands that masqueraded as a doctor's notebook. Takako was pressing her stethoscope against the belly of a doll. "Does a stethoscope have a right and a wrong side?" she asked me. "You're holding it correctly." I see. She took the stethoscope off and put it on the table. There was a whole lineup of toy medical tools on it, all to be used as part of the game. Takako looked over them for a second, and after a brief moment of hesitation, "What is this?" She picked up a spatula, generally used to hold down the tongue. The nurse is looking." I turned around and saw the nurse looking our way. She picked up a plush bunny we left on the floor earlier and put it back into its box. I couldn't make out her face in the back lights. "Was she looking at us?" "Yes. You seem to be a very untrustworthy doctor." I fear for your future patients if you ever actually become one." I think Narasaki's better at it than you, Takako." "Okay, we can switch if you want." Narasaki stood up. She picked up the stethoscope, put it around her neck, and sat down in the chair. "So, where does it hurt?" "I ate a poisoned apple." "Just like in the story we read today." In that case, please show me your stomach." "Okay." Okay, I get it. Takako pulled up her shirt, exposing her naked belly. "All right, now turn around." Takako did as ordered, pantomiming a spinning chair. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with your lungs. Okay, let's have a look at your throat now." Takako spun her invisible chair again and opened her mouth. "Open wide. Yeah, just like that." Narasaki used the spatula to push Takako's tongue out of the way. "You're good at opening your mouth. I can see all the way to your tonsils." "The nurse told me the same thing." I have no idea what you're saying, though. Okay, I get it. Takako's playing patient, Sachiko's playing nurse, and Narasaki's playing doctor. Appropriate, since Narasaki became a doctor. This is Narasaki's point of view. The letters blurred and started dancing on the page. I closed the book and rubbed my eyes with one hand. I glanced at the clock resting on the edge of the long table. I am beyond confused as to how Kozue is here. What are you reading? Kozue, sitting on the other end of the table, addressed me. "It's a book about psychological illnesses." "Oh, I hope you get better." I'm not the one affected." Kozue exhaled an aloof breath. She looked toward my direction, her eyes narrowed. "Perception and behavioral psychology?" She read out the title of the book I was holding. It's the book I was looking for. Lily said this used to be a sanatorium when you two were talking, so I figured I'd try my luck. Are you a doctor? That's right. What kind of doctor? Right now, a psychologist, but I've been training in a variety of fields. I see. Despite saying that, Kozue looked at me with incredulous eyes. I didn't flinch, and soon enough her gaze mellowed out. I've never known a doctor before. Really? Kozue began tilting her head to the side, but stopped the moment she caught herself doing it. The school has a counselor, though. You can become a counselor without a doctor's license, as long as you have the relevant education. Is that person a friend of yours? No. He came to my house this one time when I was skipping classes a lot. Apart from that, I only saw him in ethics class. You skip school a lot? When I feel tired. It's not like I enjoy slacking off for long periods of time. I was just really tired then. Did you go to school afterwards? Yes. I even got more tired once my parents started fussing over it. How do you relax on the days when you're tired? I sleep until there's no one else in the house, which is usually around 9 o'clock. After that, I read books. No one comes back until late at night, so I sometimes go outside during the afternoon. And that helps with your exhaustion? I pried a bit further. Kozue furrowed her brows, as though trying to remember what she told me. I suppose tired was not the right word. Going to the same place every day bores me to death. I want a change of scenery from time to time. Like choosing a less traveled route to school, or boarding a train and letting it take you across town and back until sundown. Stuff like that. You get what I'm trying to say. I used to be a student as well, and even now, I'm forced to do more or less the same thing every day. Don't you ever get tired of it? I do. Everyone does. Kozue placed her elbows on the desk and rested her chin on her hands. Can't I just become like those cats that always sleep on the fence? Maybe even the cat wondered why we spend all our day working with barely any rest. Anyway, people are different from napping felines. We can't just do whatever we want. Sure, we're not cats, but still, why can't we live the way we want? People have their positions in society. We are social animals and have our roles to fulfill in our communities. My legs started hurting in my current position, so I recrossed them under the table. And the community returns the favor. Schools provide you with education, while families provide you with your livelihood, until that role is taken over by your workplace, of course. And it is all structured in a way to make that function as effective as possible, which forces people to do the same thing, the thing they are best at, over and over again. Will I get better once I grow up? What do you mean exactly? I'm asking if life will become any less boring. I couldn't help but smile at Kozue's childish question. She seemed to consider an easy and unchanging life boring. At the same time, though, it could be considered the embodiment of peace, something that many people held in high regard. Why would it? Well, compared to school, there are all sorts of jobs in the world, and you're free to choose whichever you like. I don't know who's talking. I see. You're right that the world is rife with various different occupations to choose from. At school, you only have student council, while adult society has countless companies, divisions, positions, industries, occupations, and all sorts of other things that divide and sequester the whole. Kozue listened to me with somewhat dim eyes. However, this level of extreme specialization severely narrows the scope of your job compared to what you're used to at school, which is why people tend to be likened to cogs in a machine. Why does it have to be so specialized? I don't know. Maybe because everyone is competing in the same field. As our goals keep getting bigger and bigger and our population increases, Everyone has to be an expert at their respective roles. A cog, said Kozue, her expression clouding over. If you look at the big picture, we're like an awesome giant robot, I said. How does everyone let off steam in a world like that? Well, that depends on the person. It's something you'll gradually get to learn at home, at school, or even during your club activities. Is that how it works? Most of the time, at least. Kozue let out a small sigh. I suddenly don't feel like going to school tomorrow. I couldn't help making a sour expression myself. Still, maybe I'll pay a bit more attention from now on. I'm glad to hear that. With the subject covered, Kozue shifted her gaze back to her book. I returned to my book as well. It contained several records about past treatments, which made me hope I could find one that resembled Sachiko's situation. How do you work exactly? Kozue addressed me around the same time I finished making a note of every case worth looking into. Me? Taken by slight surprise, I reacted with a foolish question. There was no one else in the room, so Kozue just continued staring at me, saying nothing. I made an embarrassed smile. I'm not sure how you imagine it, but psychologists aren't like other doctors. We don't mess with your body too much. At best, we recommend some medicine. What kind of patients come to you? Most of the people that visit my place are either old men that use dementia as an excuse to talk about their grandchildren, or housewives who come to complain about their husbands and daily chores. Sounds like a pain, but even I could hear them out. Or, it doesn't take a genius to listen. What do you do when they finish talking, then? Well, first, I have to listen carefully and find the exact cause of what's weighing on their mind. Then, I think about how to help them overcome it. Sounds simple enough. Well, it might not be as easy as you think. You can't see inside a person's mind, after all. How is it not easy? It's different from simply opening someone's mouth and inspecting the condition of their tonsils, or listening for abnormalities in the beating of their heart. Everyone's mind is unique and different from mine, so you can neither quantify anything nor tell good from bad with exact precision. Then what do you do? I'm having a hard time putting it into words. However, Kozue fell completely silent, obviously waiting for an answer. I took a breath and considered how I could convey at least the gist of it to her. It might be easier to understand if you imagine the mind as a large swath of water. Its surface could be ravaged by storms, while the deeper parts remain undisturbed. However, there are times when the sea appears calm enough from the beach, but when you step into the water, you end up getting swept away by the underwater currents. People's emotions work in a similar way. To find out what's really going on, you have to delve deep. Just look at the surface or even the mid-depth won't yield a definite answer. You have to reach the bottom. You have to dive as deep as you can and shine light on the darkness you find there. On the SeaBed, I take it. And it's only then that you can start seeing the genuine thoughts of that person. They are all like deep-sea fish. Living in the depths no one knows about, they evolve in their own unique and unconstrained way. And sometimes when you shine the light on them, you realize they are somehow distorted or missing something. Your job is to convey that to the person and help them fix it. After a few moments of silence, Kozue made a small nod. I'm not sure I understood it. Can't exactly blame you. Guess it's not that easy after all. Yep. Hey, have you ever ridden a train until sundown? Not yet. Are you sure you're still sane? I have other ways to relax. You will recall how I said that each person is unique. I get enough changes apace as it is. I wish I could be like that too. As the hour grew closer to lunchtime, Kozue began stuffing her notebooks into her backpack. Going home? She slung the backpack over her shoulder. Yes. I see. In that case, can I have one last question? Kozue passed by my chair, but turned around as I addressed her. What? I'm looking for a picture book with birds. Do you know where they keep them? No. And with that, Kozue trotted out of the library. Why are you looking for a picture book for birds? Huh. The library was dead silent without Kozue and Lily. The short heels of my red shoes clicked against the floor, their sound reverberating across the walls and the high ceiling. For fun, I tried making them click at calculated intervals, producing a sound akin to the ticking of a clock. On a second-floor shelf near the window, I finally found a wild bird encyclopedia. I picked it up, brushed off the dust, and flipped through a few pages. I saw something blue and returned to that page. There was a picture of the blue bird I saw yesterday on the windowsill. Ah, that's right. Okay. I left the library sometime afternoon. As I passed the row of olive trees and reached the inner yard, I heard voices from the rough direction of the camphor tree. I followed the sound to see Nane talking to a girl I didn't know. The girl sat on a plastic sheet surrounded by a bunch of toys. As she nodded, Nane patted her on the head, which made her close her eyes in response. I'll be back with some snacks. And with that, Nane disappeared into the mansion through a side entrance. Left alone, the girl resumed playing with her toys. With her short hair fastened into a side tail, she reminded me of Takako in her childhood. I moved to her side so as to not startle her. The girl was trying to give her doll some milk. However, unable to properly press the tip of the bottle into the doll's mouth, she kept brushing it against its face. I looked at her profile. Big eyes, angled, energetic-looking eyebrows. She shared some features with Takako, but she definitely wasn't her. Hello. I addressed her as I reached the camphor tree. Wow! That resemblance is uncanny. That's right, that's not her, but wow. The girl turned toward me. However, her eyes were fixed not on me, but the doll I was holding. The doll you were holding. I made the doll's hand move as though it was knocking on the door. Who is it? I am Hibiki. I work nearby as a doctor. What about you? I am Mia. She is Lily. She showed me the baby doll she was holding. You two came here alone? She shook her head. I came here with my brother, but he went off to the mountains, leaving me to take care of everything. I see. Must be tough on you. It is. The girl was staring at the doll in my hands. I made it walk and bow in front of her. It's dirty. I made an embarrassed smile. It had obvious tear marks and its colors had mostly faded. Well, it's a pretty old doll after all. It might not look like much now, but this is actually our clinic's mascot. I moved my doll's hand to take the milk bottle from the girl, and by shifting its angle a little, pushed it into the mouth of her doll. As I did that, the liquid inside the bottle decreased. Thank you. This time the girl looked at me. You're welcome. Miss Doctor, would you accept an invitation for dinner as a token of our gratitude? I like that idea. The girl began preparing dinner, placed toy plates and food on a board. Wow, that's a hard sentence to say out loud. It looks delicious. I see you've prepared a melon pie and some vegetable soup. But what's this?
Potato salad.
Creak. The door of the side entrance opened. Oh? Nane closed the door behind her with one leg. She was carrying a tray full of medallines and had an extra medalline in her mouth. Good evening. I greeted her with my doll. Nane came closer to us and saw the food the girl had prepared.
Oh, that smells nice. You want some too, Nane? Of course. I even brought dessert. Let's all have some later.
Eventually, Maya's brother returned to come pick her up. You sure you got all your toys with you? Maya spent a few moments rummaging through her bag, then stuck her hands in her pockets and checked something in there as well.
Yes.
Ouch! What's up with running off and leaving your sister all on her own? Further away, it seemed like Nane's iron fist of punishment had just landed on the boy's head. He staggered backwards, clutching his head with one hand.
Miss Narasaki?
I felt someone tug on my sleeve. Glancing down, I saw Maya looking at me. I leaned down and patted her on the head. Goodbye. Let's play again some other time.
Be careful on your way back, okay?
Maya smiled, then ran off with her brother and Nane. Things ended well this time around, but what do you think would have happened if she tried following you and got lost in the mountains? Someone has to look after her. Use your head. You're her brother. I thought you'd look after her if I left her here. Maya's brother kept making excuses in a small voice while still clutching his head. Move your hand. I'm gonna give you another one.
Nane.
Maya tugged on Nane's sleeve with a worried expression. Nane let out a sigh and lowered her fist. Well, whatever. Make sure you get home by the time it gets dark. I'm sorry. The boy lowered his head, took Maya's hand and her bag, and walked off. I told everything that happened to your parents, so better be ready when you get home. The boy startled for a moment, but then continued walking. As I watched the siblings walk off in the afternoon glow, Nane turned to me and made an embarrassed smile. I ended up causing you trouble. It's been a while since I could return to my inner child. It was fun. Really? I'm glad to hear that. Contrary to her words, her expression still remained somewhat sour. You sure you didn't go overboard with that boy? Don't worry. I know all the kids and their parents around here. I can't let them misbehave in front of my eyes. What if he starts hating you for beating him and such? I'm sure he'll understand. And if he starts hating me, I'll do my best to make him change his mind. You don't want to upset them, but you can't let them do as they please either. That's the hard part of being an adult. Nane shook her head. Was there any significance to that, or was that just slice of life? That girl had a strong resemblance to Takako, but it was not Takako. I completely agree, it was not Takako. Sachiko's turn. I found a round resting room at the end of the corridor on the second floor. It had a small table and 2 chairs. There was also a shelf with a collection of old books. The curving wall facing the inner yard was covered in windows. The camphor tree stood right in front of the windows, its branches partially blocking the light. I sat down in one of the chairs and gazed outside. I thought about what I should do next. The sun rays filtered through the leaves gave the chairs and the table in the room a pleasant warmth. I felt somewhat drowsy looking at all that greenery swaying in the wind. back to school. The bell signaled the end of lunchtime. Some of the boys dashed out of the classroom to secure themselves a place to play on the athletics field. The sound of the shuffling footsteps and various voices filled the area around me. Managing to finish my pack of milk before the bell stopped ringing, I tore off the part holding it together and folded it into a neat rectangle. Once I was finished, I put it into the green case next to the podium. The cases for other tableware seemed to have already been cleaned up. I picked up the green case and left the classroom, intending to carry it to the storage room. Clang. I lowered the case, placing it next to the whole bunch of similarly green cases from other classes. As I left the dark storage room and glanced out the window, I spotted several students already playing ball on the athletics field. The normally popular basketball court seemed to have been taken over by an older class. I turned away and continued to the backyard. The backyard between the fourth wing and a big concrete wall was about as poorly lit as the storage room, but at least it allowed me to distance myself from the noise of the other students. However, as I turned a corner beyond the fourth wing, I saw someone. The silhouette was crouching over a patch of grass, apparently watering it.
What are you doing? Ah, Sachi!
Takako turned around, her twin tails dancing in the wind. I sat down next to her, in my usual spot on the emergency stairs.
I came to water your birthday present. Is that so? It's always damp here, so I don't think it needs much watering. You're never in your classroom during lunch. Do you always come here? Yes.
I opened my paperback and took out the bookmark. Takako sat down next to me and spent a few minutes staring at the page I was reading, but soon got tired of it and turned away. She then picked up a sketchbook that was lying on the stairs and began drawing something with a brown pencil. Scritch, scritch, scratch. The scribbling of the pencil was the only sound in the backyard for a while.
What are you drawing? Your present. You told me I couldn't pluck it, so I figured I'd draw it. I see. You know, our classical Japanese teacher is terrible. I keep raising my hand, but he never asks me anything. Earlier today, I tried raising my hand to answer a question that no one else in class had a clue about, and he still ignored me. Why do you think that is? Maybe he hates you because you keep sleeping in class, and your voice is always too loud. I can't help my voice. But I guess I was right. Damn, and then the math teacher only ever asks me something when I don't know the answer. Besides, you're terrible at classical Japanese. He probably doesn't let you speak because he doesn't want you to embarrass yourself. Yeah, I'll get great grades on the next test and show him. Good luck. Sachi, can you teach me after school? I can, but what about your club? The boys' basketball and volleyball teams are using the gym today, so I don't have practice. I'll do some running tonight, but that's about it. I see.
I turned a page. The sound of fervent scribbling resumed.
I'm done!
She placed the pencil on the stairs and held out her sketchbook in front of me. A four-leaf clover extended across the entire page, each of its leaves appearing a bit different. Some of the leaves were drawn with wavy lines, while others looked jagged. Both versions looked quite pleasing to the eye, despite them being drawn with relatively few lines.
Exactly what kind of profession are you aiming for? Well?
Her big eyes grew round as she let out a thoughtful grunting sound.
I like drawing and creating things, so something along those lines. That's not very specific. It's the bell. Let's go.
As I stood up and brushed the dust off my skirt, Takako rolled along the ground and stopped beside me.
What are you doing?
After school, upon turning the corner, I saw Takako on all fours.
What are you doing?
Oh! Takako turned her head over her shoulder and waved at me.
I was looking for the four-leaf clover. Do you come here every break? My classes are over. I came here to read a book for a while before going home.
I sat down on the stairs, opened the book, and took out the bookmark.
Here it is.
As soon as she found it, she unzipped her bag she had left in the shadow of the stairs and took out her equipment. She entered the building holding a yellow bucket, filled it up with water, then came back out.
Alrighty.
She sat down next to me. Splish. She stuck her brush into the water.
Green and yellow.
She squeezed the paint tubes, covering her palette in colors.
I feel like it's not colorful enough.
I turned a page.
Just use some other colors then.
I see. I turned a page. I heard the sound of a brush gliding against the canvas. The damp, gloomy backyard regained its usual silence. The only things I could hear were the sound of turning pages as I read and the cries of the cicadas in the distance.
I'm done. What do you think?
She placed the brush on the stairs and held out the sketchbook in front of me.
That's one colorful clover. I'm avant-garde. Does it have any meaning? Well,
she stuck her head out and considered the canvas herself. She then pointed at the blue leaf.
This blue leaf represents a sprout. It's the youngest of the four. The yellow one is the young leaf that's yet to fully form. The green one, well, as you can no doubt tell yourself, it's just a normal leaf in its prime. And lastly, this red one is a leaf at the very end of its life.
She pointed at the green and red leaves in order.
I'm impressed you managed to come up with that on the spot. I passed a qualification examination for colors the other day. You can make any color you want by mixing the four I used for these leaves.
Takako's palette was a difficult-to-describe mess of a whole array of colors mixed together, almost like she couldn't decide which one to pick right up until the very end. So she's artistic. Considering she got into graphic design, right? So I guess she'd have to be. For Sachi to, Okay, now Narasaki's here at the exact same spot. At the end of the second floor corridor, there was a cylinder-shaped lounge with a small table, 2 chairs, and a bookshelf in it. A set of large windows lined the wall, welcoming the serene afternoon light. I spotted Sachiko sleeping at the table, using her elbows as a pillow. I silently pulled out the other chair, careful not to wake her. The chair creaked as I lowered myself in it, but it didn't seem to disturb her. Sachiko's shoulders rhythmically moved up and down, but other than that, she remained motionless. Her thin and glossy hair, succumbing to the pull of gravity, covered her face. It swayed ever so slightly in the soft breeze, glimmering in the afternoon light. I realized the collar of my coat got crooked as I sat down. Remembering that I had a doll in my pocket, I took it out and placed it on the table. It had been preserved well given its age. I tried brushing off a dirty spot on its cheek with a finger, but it didn't work. Suddenly I heard some footsteps from behind. Looking up, I saw Nane's aunt at the other end of the corridor. She seemed to have noticed me as well and made a light bow.
Hello.
She came over to my chair, carrying a basket full of laundry.
Hello. The weather is certainly nice today. Neither too cold nor too hot. A perfect day for an afternoon nap if there ever was one.
How about joining us? An enticing proposal, but I must refuse. If Nana found us, I wouldn't hear the end of it. That's too bad. Lily made a warm smile, then shifted her gaze to the doll on the table.
Is this yours?
Yeah?
It looks quite old.
Switching the laundry basket to her other hand, Lily considered the doll with curious eyes. I held it up in front of her. She took it with her one free hand.
Is it handmade? Spots of dirt aside, it looks quite well crafted.
I've had it since my childhood. You could say it's somewhat special to me.
Ah, so it's something important to you.
Lily inspected the doll for any other patches of dirt or tear marks.
I could fix it for you if you want.
Really?
Of course. It's not like our own antiques receive no refurbishing. We have a contract with a company that specializes in these things, and I myself can handle some of the simpler items.
Lily answered me with a smile.
Fixing your doll is not that difficult compared to what I usually do anyway.
In that case, I definitely appreciate it.
All right.
Lily placed the doll in her laundry basket. She then pulled out a sheet from it.
Use this if you're planning to sleep.
Thank you.
It was hanging in the sun just a few minutes ago, so it should feel quite pleasant.
I might end up being unable to sleep at night because of it, though. Lily chuckled.
That wouldn't be good. Sleep is the best medicine, or however the saying goes.
She nodded to herself a few times.
I imagine a mansion like this must have a ghost story or two. Absolutely. Do you like these kinds of stories?
I'm quite a fan.
In that case, I can tell you one if you want.
Sounds great. Lily nodded, placed the basket on the floor, and lowered herself to the empty chair.
It's about a woman that used to live here quite some while ago. She was different from most people. You could say she had an unusually sharp intuition. For example, look at this scar. I got it when I was hit by a bike.
Lily rolled up her sleeve and showed her elbow to me. I could make out a scar that must have needed at least 6 stitches. Ah, man. It was quite an old wound. I doubt I would have even noticed the scar had she not pointed it out.
I spoke to that woman on the phone the day before, and she told me to be careful of bikes. She would always warn you about things out of nowhere, but her premonitions almost always turned out to be true.
Why did you get hurt then?
Lily smiled. I wasn't planning to go out that day, but I was bored and napped through half the day, and by the time I awoke, I'd already forgotten about the warning. I figured it was the perfect time to take out the trash, and as soon as I stepped outside, I was hit by a bike.
She leaned to the left, pantomiming how she got hit.
So that person could predict the future? I'm not sure. In my experience, there were only 2 occasions where she predicted something with such accuracy, so I probably wouldn't go so far as to say she could read the future. On the other hand, there were several cases that made me think she had unbelievably good instincts. It felt more like she was sensitive to the supernatural. One time while working here, I figured I'd skip out on cleaning duty and was sleeping in the storage room when I woke up with some really bad sleep paralysis. I couldn't move at all, and I was half panicking when I suddenly heard someone's footsteps outside, along with the voices of 2 people. However, my mouth wouldn't move, so I couldn't call for help either. As I was praying for someone to notice me, I heard one of the 2 draw closer to the storage room, opening its door. It was her again. I pleaded for help with my gaze, but when she saw me, all she did was snort, as if making fun of me.
Lily recounted the story with a smile on her own face.
She then closed the door and left. The sleep paralysis subsided on its own later, and I remember looking all over the place to find and give her a piece of my mind. I was furious she didn't rescue me.
Lily raised her fist in an expression of rightful anger, but soon lowered it and smiled.
At any rate, I thought she had special powers. How about you? Do you believe in such things?
I've had no first-hand experience with stuff like that, so I don't have much to say.
I see.
Lily continued in a slightly hushed tone. A lot of hotels and inns started popping up after the war, for tourists and such. However, most of them went bankrupt as soon as the real estate bubble burst, and with no funds to even raise the buildings, they ended up abandoned. It had been a while since olden times that this area maintained strong ties with the supernatural, but with a convenient ghost mansion around, the stories pertaining to all the things that might live inside went completely out of control. There are dozens of such stories. I honestly can't even remember them all. Anyway, this woman in question could see those kinds of things, so she had it rough, and her senses grew even keener after that one particular incident. At first, she only said she could hear sounds at night. At that time, she was already working and lodging at the mansion. Anyway, she once said she could hear water dripping from the tap, despite sleeping in the wing farthest from the kitchen. The tap here was pretty loose, so you had to close it really tightly. With that in mind, she climbed out of bed and went to the kitchen to see what was up. Still half asleep, she tried to wring the tap handle even harder, but it didn't help. This is the same music that the other girl gave the ghost story. Oh man. Sane. Then she suddenly heard something near her ears that sounded vaguely like the laugh of a child. She swiftly spun around, but there was no one there. Figuring it was only her imagination, she returned to bed, but as soon as she began to doze off, she heard some voices again. This time it was a bunch of children laughing. She jumped out of bed, but once again, there was no one there. Assuming it was just a bad dream she had after that unpleasant experience with that tap, she lay back on the bed, only for the sound of dripping water to start up again. She had a bad feeling about it, but still considered the possibility that her previous experience with the tap was no more than a dream. In the end, she got up and went to the kitchen again. As she closed the handle again, well, that went too fast for me to read. Let's play some more. However, she didn't turn around. Instead, she focused on something that she saw from the corner of her eyes. It was not behind, but below her. She slowly looked down to see a child looking at her. Got a chill down my spine.
The child turned its shadowy face to her, and after conceding that they had been found, suddenly dashed towards the kitchen wall and vanished beyond it. Well, was that scary?
She leaned against the table on her elbows and took a good look at my face. Yeah, that was pretty creepy. Can I get a backlog of what we missed? Let's see, message history. L. Let's see. You guys pause that and read out if you want. Okay.
Right?
She nodded to herself with a satisfied smile. That was a genuinely creepy story. Ugh.
Want to hear what happened next?
Yeah, what happened?
So,
she ended up changing rooms, but felt the presence of children in her new place as well. After that, she started seeing odd things all over the mansion. I saw her run into them multiple times myself. This one time, she suddenly stopped in place as we were climbing the stairs. When I asked her what was wrong, she told me she saw something in the mirror that shouldn't have been there. We had a big mirror on the second floor and I gave it a glance, but it looked perfectly normal to me. All I could see reflected in it were the two of us. I asked her if she was tired and played it for laughs at the time, but it kept happening. So I figured I might as well try and research the history of the mansion a bit. I already knew that the place used to be a sanatorium. I've told you about the Fujisaka family, right? Well, we knew that even before we refurbished the place. The building has been purified by Shinto priests, and it was never a hospital or the site of a graveyard either. Besides, this area saw plenty of battles during the war, so you'd expect all the weird things to happen there and not over here in a secluded mansion. Anyway, I figured to dig a bit deeper, using the records in the study and the library next door. Hi, Tim Toaster. Well, I don't sleep for another 8 hours, so this is fine. That genuinely gave me the creeps, though. Oh, that's right. The library over there actually used to belong to another building. It fell apart before we could do anything about it, so we only ended up getting the library. It's actually even older than this mansion. Anyway, I also found some black and white photos from when this place used to be a sanatorium. Ugh. I showed the pictures to my friend, and then she pointed at a few people, telling me she actually saw them here in the mansion. Lily stole a glance at me.
What happened after that? Well, we assumed those people must have been ghosts or something, so we called a priest and had him purify the place. We used holy salt, placed charms on the doors and the walls and all that jazz. There might still be some left. Want me to look for them?
I figured it wouldn't have been too fun to see them, so I declined. Anyway, after that, she stopped telling her weird stories to me. I was relieved, thinking we were finally done with it. But one day, and ironically enough, in this exact place, I was walking down the corridor when I heard some voices. Thinking that someone was having a conversation, I continued walking and ran into her. But there was no one else. She just stood there, chuckling all by herself. When I asked her what she was doing, she answered that it was nothing. It felt weird, so I didn't back down. Who were you talking to? I asked her. She finally told me that those people from the pictures didn't disappear after the purification, and that after talking to them, she found out they weren't bad people at all. She didn't want us to worry anymore, so she kept silent about it. No one else, of course, saw or felt anything, so it could have gone by unnoticed, but I think she wanted someone to confess to. Even after that, I saw her talking to herself on multiple occasions. One time, when we were folding the sheets, she suddenly looked up at the ceiling and started following something with her eyes. When I asked her what it was, she told me she saw a butterfly. But I couldn't see anything no matter where I looked. It also happened on a cold winter day, so it didn't even make sense for a butterfly to be there. She said it was probably from the other world. According to her, it was a beautiful blue butterfly. After that, she began talking to herself a lot less frequently. Instead, she started seeing butterflies everywhere. I realized how she would almost always stare upward whenever we roamed the corridors together. She even said she wanted to try and catch one. Anyway, one day she had to clean the guest rooms. I was assigned to cleaning the windows in the corridor, but as I was working, I suddenly heard a loud sound from the room she was cleaning. I rushed inside to find it completely empty. The window was open, so I looked down, thinking that she might have fallen down or something. I didn't see anyone. But then I remembered we had a well down below, so...
I called some people, and we ended up going down the well with flashlights and everything, but found nothing. Only the dark water's surface reflected our lights. We turned the place upside down looking for her, but never found her.
Huh? Didn't that turn into a serious incident? I assume the police were involved.
Yeah. The police filed her as a missing person and kept looking. They even climbed down our well, but didn't find any clues. Anyway, she disappeared without a trace. Most of the people have heard stories about her. So they started saying that she was spirited away. Her parents looked everywhere for her, but ended up with no clues either. However, it's possible she's around here all along. It's just that we couldn't see her.
Well, was it scary? Lily opened her eyes wide as she asked the question. More like creepy in an unsettling way. I suppose. You know, someone said that if we can't find the body, that means there's a chance she's still out there, alive and well. It's a possibility I can't deny. So you're saying we're better off not knowing? Well, there are things best left unknown, right? Besides, we don't even know whether she was seeing real ghosts or just had mental problems. On the other hand, she began acting particularly weird after seeing those old pictures. Perhaps it would have been best for her to just ignore the whole incident with that child, or whatever she saw on the first weird night. What do you think? Well, I imagine it'd be difficult not to pay attention to something as big as that. I will point out, as my one aside, Sachiko thought she saw Takako the first night she stayed here. I really am beginning to wonder if these are parallel universes, perhaps. That in one universe, Takako's alive in the sanatorium, and in another universe, Takako's dead and this place is a mansion. I wonder. That's about my only good working theory that I've got. But I have no clue if I'm right or not. Hopefully we'll learn a little more as this goes on. You're right, but I think it was at least an option. As I deliberated on which part she had been referring to exactly, her tone suddenly turned more cheerful. These kinds of stories are like Pandora's box. If no one ever opened the thing before, how would they know that hope would be the last thing remaining at the bottom? However, some theories claim that you could also know the future through it. Really? Still, it doesn't change my example. I glanced at Sachiko, and Lily followed my gaze. What do you think? The light falling on Sachiko's hair had grown orange in hue. Oh, is she awake now? I suddenly heard another set of footsteps approaching from the direction of the corridor. Yeah, Dirt Tomato, I've given up. It's taken every ounce of willpower to not spoil myself to figure out what's going on. I don't want to spoil myself. I don't want to theorize either because all my theories are sad. So I'm hoping that there's a good ending, a happy ending. Please don't spoil if there is or is. I want to find out. Ugh. It's a mystery novel for a reason, but this is hurting my brain. I love Takako. That's all I know for sure. I suddenly heard another set of footsteps approaching from the direction of the corridor. Oh, snap! Lily stood up as Nane stormed into our serene space. What are you doing here? What about the laundry? Nane addressed Lily in a somewhat heated tone. I wasn't skipping on work. I was telling our guest about the story of our mansion, that's all. I really hope they weren't your silly ghost stories again. Oh, not even close. Right. I'm sorry for taking up your time, but I truly appreciated that curious little story. Nane looked at Lily, then back at me. She finally heaved a deep sigh. Well, okay then. I'll say this, Tomato. The tips! I've read the tips and everything that's available to me so far, and I'm even more confused because of it. Oh man. Hey, for everyone who thinks you got a grasp of reality, for everyone who thinks that you are completely mentally sane, read this story. You will question everything you know. Lily picked up her laundry basket.
Well, I'll be returning to work then. Jeez. Let's have another chat sometime, said Lily as she began walking down the corridor. Sure. Well, see you around then.
Nane followed after Lily. Sachiko slept through all of that? Man, that is one deep sleeper. Whew. She was just passed out right there. Okay. Well, what? We read, okay. All of the tips 1, Narasaki's clinic. I guess they're all done. Now this is tips 2, second trip. Landscape immersion. I am going to save the game here and read that tip right now. The sooner the better, I've learned with these tips, so you don't get lost. Tips 2 will surely make things less confusing, right? Ha! Good one. The crazy thing is, the tips are about the only thing that I can take as gospel. Like, everything, like, especially after learning that Sachiko has memory problems, and apparently Takako has the same issue. And I don't know what Narasaki's objective is in all of this. She's up to something. Whether it's malicious or not, I don't know. But it's like the only possible thing that I trust is these tips, and these only make things even more confusing for me. Whoever wrote this VN is a masochist. I was on my way to Tokyo to pick up furniture for my mansion from a friend. I had 2 good friends in high school, and one of them would donate her furniture to my place from time to time. She established herself as the president of the hotel business in the capital, being the most successful one out of the 3 of us. Yesterday, she told me over the phone how she decided to close a few of her hotels and sell off the land. According to her, the decision wasn't made due to the business struggling. In fact, she bought the land expecting its value to skyrocket so she could sell it off at a higher price. Long story short, she now had some extra furniture she didn't know what to do with. She sent a portion of the furniture to her other places and sold off others at an auction, but she still had a lot left and didn't feel like throwing everything away. Besides, donating them to someone was cheaper than disposal anyway. I made her remember that I ran an end. It made her remember that I ran an end, so she decided to contact me. We both came from a small village in the mountains. Most of it consisted of rice paddy fields and traditional Japanese buildings with thatched roofs that you could rarely find anymore in this day and age. Besides that, only lush green mountains surrounded the area. It was the very definition of the word countryside. As such, the majority of my childhood memories were of flowing rivers, singing birds, and the fresh smell of rice fields. I heard the chirping of birds as I got off the train. But as I looked around trying to find them, I only saw a tall pole with a speaker on top. I descended the stairs thinking that people in the city were weird. My friend was always obsessed with success, so she ended up choosing a famous university in the capital. At first I was worried about her. As to why, well, there were never really anything about her that made her stand out in school. Even her grades were all average. I imagined city people as a competition-driven group that would do anything for money, so I wasn't sure how a country lamb like her could possibly survive in a sea of such sharks. Evening, Dim. Ah, yeah, daylight savings time. It'll always get us, every time. However, she ended up being much more capable than I gave her credit for, and got as far as opening multiple hotels and inns all over the area by herself. In retrospect, perhaps her ability not to stand out in the country was just another manifestation of her shrewdness in life. I never suspected her to have an interest in running businesses, although she was always the one who'd collect money from us to pay for the bill whenever we went to eat out. She was never a part of any group of authority in school, like a student council or something similar. But now that I thought about it, she would always find a way to keep the discussion going once all the others had run out of ideas or energy. It was interesting how talent would sometimes manifest in the least expected places, although you could only ever notice that in retrospect. As for me, I remained in our hometown and still lived there. As I left the station, I climbed onto the back seat of the first taxi I spotted and told the driver the address of the hotel. The driver raised a white-gloved hand in a sign of understanding. I leaned back in my seat and recalled the last time I visited her hotel. She bought some ancient building with a bunch of old furniture and gave it a makeover. The result was the hotel. I wasn't sure if they'd fit my place, but I did have my eye on a few specific things. As such, I promised her to board the Shinkansen from Kansai to Tokyo first thing in the early morning the next day. So is this Lily or Nane? I looked up at a tall building I saw through the window. It was my third time in Tokyo. Most of the time, I'd just head straight to the international airport by train, so it was pretty new for me to actually be driven through the city in a taxi. I could feel the driver staring at me through the rearview mirror, so I decided not to fidget too much. When I reached the hotel, I found her in the lobby. She was talking on the phone. She drew the phone away from her ear for a moment, and before I could open my mouth, said, "Is there anything that piques your interest? Put the sticker on it." Back on the train, I mentally ran through multiple simulations of how our conversation would go, but it seemed like I was only wasting my time. But that was so like her. Following her instructions, I spent the rest of the time walking around and putting stickers with my name on them on things I liked. Turning around, I saw all sorts of furniture with my stickers on them. It reminded me of a property seizure scene I once saw in a movie. Some of the things I wanted were already gone, but I still got my hands on quite a number of nice articles. One of the antiques I grew particularly fond of was a moss green one-seater sofa of English design. After about an hour, I returned to the lobby to look for my friend. I spotted her walking through the main entrance. She seemed to be on her way somewhere, accompanied by a person wearing an expensive suit. "You're already done?" "Yeah." "Did you find anything?" "I found quite a few things I could use. It was definitely worth the trip." "Glad to hear that. Are you going somewhere?" "Yes, I have some urgent business to take care of. I don't think I'll be back by sunset." "I see. I'm sorry for having you come all this way, and it's okay. Work doesn't wait. I'll come back some other time to thank you for this." Yeah, I'm familiar with what happens in that dim, yeah. She made a warm smile upon hearing me say that. It was at least 3 times more dazzling than the one I remembered from our school days. We're actually going to pass by the station on the way. We could drop you off there if you want. That'd save me some cash on the taxi. Thanks." I spotted a luxurious-looking black car parked at the side of the road as we left the hotel. We both climbed onto the back seat. The interior smelled brand new. I looked out the window as the car began to move. I might have come from the country, but even I knew this was a luxurious German car that must have cost a fortune to buy and maintain. As I was wondering whether she was filing a purchase of this caliber under taxable or non-taxable expenditure, she suddenly asked me how I felt about the city. It took me a few moments to realize the meaning of her question. "It's quite different from home. I was really surprised by that random birdsong speaker at the station." "Oh, those are for the visually handicapped." I gave her a confused look. "You might have noticed how they were all set up by the stairs." I reddened, realizing I had the wrong idea all along. "It's been quite a while since I've been back home," she remarked, changing the subject upon noticing my distress. We spent the few minutes it took to get to the station discussing the country. As we reached our destination, I stepped out of the car and thanked her. I glanced at my watch as the car rolled away. I had nothing to do for the rest of the day. Ooh. Heaving a sigh, I ventured into the Nakano shopping district with the intention of grabbing something for lunch. After walking around for a while, I found myself attracted to a melon bread shop and a ramen restaurant. However, I felt like melon bread alone would not be enough, while the ramen seemed like it was made using bland soy sauce for the base. Yep, definitely them. And I remembered how there was an excellent ramen shop in Ueno. I couldn't quite remember how to get there, but I had plenty of time to spare, so I hopped on a train at Nakano Station that headed in Ueno's general direction. I changed to the Yamanote line in Shinjuku and reached my destination with far less difficulty than I expected. It was already past 1 o'clock, but I still managed to get into the shop without having to wait in a line. With no one to talk to while I ate, I ended up reminiscing about the last time I'd been here. I ate here with the other one of those two friends I mentioned. At the time, she wanted to go to the nearby zoo. It was 2 o'clock when I left the restaurant. I had reserved a seat on the night train, but seeing how it was a weekday, I probably would have found an open seat on any random train at this hour. However, my original plan was to spend the night drinking with my friend while reminiscing about the old days, then use all my remaining energy to catch the last train and sleep until I was home. I felt a need to use all this pent-up energy. Besides, I was in a good mood after getting my hands on all that great furniture for free. I decided to go to the zoo. I thought it'd be empty at this hour, but I was wrong. There was a middle-aged man with a camera looking at birds. I also found an old man gazing at the elephants. I ran into a whole family on the Penguin Mountain. Each corner had at least one person strolling around. One man was drinking beer in front of the bear cage. At first glance, I didn't spot anything inside, so I stopped and began looking for the bear that was supposedly there. Its cage was on a lower level compared to me, with some rocks, a lake, and a large tree in the middle. I circled around the cage, but I still couldn't find the bear. Perhaps the caretakers took it somewhere else. The bear might have needed a medical checkup, or had to be taught some tricks to entertain the audience, or maybe it needed to be washed at some other facility. I stole a glance at the man sitting on the bench, drinking beer. He was absent-mindedly gazing in my direction. I couldn't imagine what he was doing there in front of an empty cage, although I figured he could have said the same thing about me. When I reached the small animal corner, I realized I was going through the zoo in the exact same order as before. There were hundreds of potential routes one could have picked. I remembered how adamant my friend was about seeing an anteater, so we pretty much combed the entire place looking for it. I was following the exact same route now. I stood in front of the anteater's cage. It was still in the same place, a building separated from visitors by a glass wall. There was a sign with the word anteater written on it in white ink dangling in front of the cage. "Found it," I said while she was looking somewhere else. "You did?" She cheerfully hurried to my side. "Where is it?" She lined up next to me. "I don't think it's here right now." "No way! This cannot be!" She dropped her shoulders. When I asked her why she wanted to see it so much, she told me its hands looked cute when it tried to walk on its hind legs. She wanted to see the real thing ever since she saw it in a picture. And indeed, there was a picture of an anteater with its hind legs in front of the cage too. "It seems to do that when it's angry," I told her as I read the explanation. "That's what's good about it." I very much doubted the anteater would have agreed with that. I pulled myself back to reality and gave the cage a good look. There was no sight of the anteater this time either. I felt like I could now understand her disappointment. Someone else came to the cage while I was lingering in front of it. I decided to make it look like I was looking for an animal before I'd hastily leave. However, as I shook my head in front of the cage, a man walked up next to me and began taking pictures of it. Confused, I peered into the cage again. But no matter where I looked, I couldn't see any animals. Next, I looked at the man. Wearing a polo shirt, he seemed to be lost in his own world while taking pictures. Excuse me, could you tell me what you're taking pictures of? I had to ask, otherwise this would have kept me up all night. Maybe there was something wrong with my head that made me feel unable to perceive anteaters in the real world. Besides, I hated the feeling of regret that came after letting certain opportunities slip past you. Man looked at me and made a friendly smile. I'm in need of some scenery pictures. I'm not here to photograph animals, he added. Scenery pictures? Still somewhat puzzled, I ended up parroting his words. I'm designing something that's supposed to recreate the world of animals living in their cages. It's called habitat reproduction, and I'm collecting samples for it right now. He stopped taking pictures and explained everything to me in a friendly manner. I see. It wasn't anything special after all. Now that I thought about it, being unable to see anteaters probably wasn't a very realistic disease anyway. If that even warranted any thought. This is a miniature South American tropical rainforest inside that cage. Even the sounds and the temperature are being emulated. Now that he mentioned it, this room was indeed unnaturally warm, and I could even hear the sounds of monkeys and birds through the speakers. I see, I said, feeling impressed. Animals feel more at home this way, and the audience, too, has a chance to learn more about the actual tropical conditions. That's pretty elaborate. I'll pay more attention to the scenery from now on. You do that. I guarantee it'll be more fun that way. I'll have to remember that next time I go to the zoo, guys. After parting from the man, I followed his suggestion and began scrutinizing the environment of the other cages. I thought they all had similar plants inside them, but as I took a closer look, I realized that almost every cage had something different. What surprised me was that none of them were merely models or imitations, but real, actual plants that the zoo staff must have been growing. I found a lot of plants I'd never seen before. I didn't realize it, but this place could have easily doubled as a botanic garden. They must have cared for their animals quite a bit. A branch quivered in a tall cage inside the bird corner. I spotted a big owl. I turned to the signboard for help, but it listed a whole bunch of different predatory birds along with their illustrations, and I couldn't immediately find the one I had just seen. The signboard had information about their names, natural habitat, and the method of their hunting. I stared into the round eyes of the bird. I had a feeling it was staring back at me. I wondered if it could remember its old forest. Although from the way it motionlessly stared at me, it didn't seem like it was having any such thoughts. And now that I thought about it, she was also quite interested in birds. Back when we lived together in that mansion up in the mountains, we would observe different types every season. She would find all sorts of birds and tell me their names. I remembered how we'd look for them in the forest after hearing their chirping. During one of our walks, I asked her the names of every single bird we spotted. She ended up mentioning over 30 species. I myself only recognized 2 or 3, but I could still remember over half the names she kept repeating. I pulled myself back to reality again. The owl was still staring at me. I guess the zoo helps me remember my past, at least. Well, that was probably the end of that tip. Who was that, and who was that friend? Incredibly confused. Sachiko napping. Adorbs. I sensed a shadow pass over the yellow light filtering through my eyelids. Egged by curiosity, I opened my eyes to see what it was. Slanted sun rays covered the table I'd been hugging, creating a gleaming patchwork of light as I passed through the branches of the camphor tree beyond the window. In my still blurred field of view, I spotted Narasaki standing by the bookshelf.
When did you come here? Oh, good morning.
A blanket slid down my shoulders as I raised my upper body. I felt dizzy and pressed my thumbs against my temples.
I had a dream.
What kind?
Well,
after I straightened my back and used my palm to iron out the wrinkles of my clothes, I began telling her about my dream. The misty haze blanketed my mind, slowly withdrew.
Does that question have something to do with my condition?
Not really, said Nagasaki as she sat down in the chair before me. I read a book about the interpretation of dreams the other day.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Though it doesn't sound much like you.
The corners of Nagasaki's lips curled up. I'm sure I've said this before, but I've got a profound sense of curiosity.
Anyway, my dream started with me and Takako on the bus. It was going through what looked like the countryside and then got into a tunnel. Passing that, we emerged into a city I've never seen before. I got worried, and after discussing it with Takako, got off the bus together. We walked around a bit, but no matter where we went, the place felt completely unfamiliar to us. Then Takako said she wanted to climb the mountain we saw in the distance. She said she could figure out where we were from a higher vantage point. So we climbed that mountain together.
The details had become foggy by now, but I could remember the gist of it.
Does that tell you anything?
At least 3 things, I guess.
From just that?
First, riding in a bus symbolizes being influenced by others regardless of your will. A place you don't know represents your dissatisfaction and wish for a change in your current life. Finally, climbing a mountain means working hard toward a certain goal.
Well, does any of those ring a bell?
When you put it like that. Now that I thought about it, the whole thing about the bus and how we got off reminded me of how Takako and I quit our jobs in the city. What happened afterwards?
Then, it all changed. Before I knew it, I was dreaming about going to my old home in the country. The city turned into my old town, but we were still climbing a steep hill together.
Yeah, I remember our old town having lots of tall hills.
Yeah, and when we reached the top, we could see the entire place from high above. We sat down on a bench and gazed at the sunset for a while. Then I realized I lost my wallet, but found it almost immediately afterwards. The money in it was all gone, but I was just happy to have it back.
Nagasaki's expression grew somewhat mellow. That's good.
They say that seeing the countryside in your dreams means your mind is stabilizing itself and that your imagination has become richer. Really?
I didn't necessarily feel that way, but her previous comments hit close to the mark, so hearing that made me feel a little relieved. Losing something means being turned down in love, while finding something means being successful in your romantic relationship.
So what does it mean if you lose something but find it soon afterwards?
I'm not sure. Nagasaki shook her head, making an embarrassed smile. Well, it's pretty much fortune-telling, so don't take it too seriously.
The first part felt accurate enough, but I'm not sure about the rest.
Well, the point is that you have fun. I'm surprised you remember everything so well, though.
I'm good at remembering dreams, and I get tired easily these days, so I keep falling asleep everywhere. I suppose shallow sleep like that results in lots of dreams.
Is that where your dream ended?
No, there's a bit more. Later, I met a person that claimed to know me, even though I didn't recognize them. Still, they said they were in the same class. When I tried thinking about it, I realized the person participated in the party we had shortly before we left to move to the city.
What kind of person was it? In dreams, people you don't know tend to be your idealized versions of various traits.
Really? I couldn't see their face, though, and the dream ended there.
So did that party actually happen in the real world? I felt a little strange. Something wrong?
I tried remembering who that person was, but couldn't. And when I thought about the party, I realized it was something that happened in another dream I had. I totally forgotten about it until then, though.
Woohoo! From a light to a regular. Let's go. I have more than one switch.
You mean you remembered one of your dreams in another dream? I think so, yes.
Nagasaki slowly recrossed her legs.
Well, it's hardly an impossible phenomenon. Remembering other dreams inside a dream?
I've had that happen before. It's very rare, but it does happen to me.
Yeah, though I've never experienced it myself. Really? When you're awake, it's difficult to remember dreams, but easy to recall things you did during your waking hours. The opposite is also true. Why does it work that way? Because your memories are separated into two categories, one pertaining to reality, another to dreams.
Is that a clue? Is that a giant bomb of a clue for what's going on?
Your brain can tell when you're dreaming and stores your dream memories in a different place so the two don't get mixed up. So you're saying it's easy to remember dreams when you're dreaming? It's probably a bit more complicated than that, but that's the gist of it. So there are memories particular to dreams. I thought that dreams were just random images your brain assigned to the disjointed noise that went through your mind as you slept.
Nagasaki shook her head with a smile.
I think that happens too, but you also dream when you're asleep. As for the accuracy of dream memories, I don't think your memories of reality are all that much different. I suppose so.
I experienced that firsthand.
You really do know a lot of things, Nagasaki.
I've just had an opportunity to research this stuff for something else.
What exactly did you research?
Well,
people store all the things they see and hear in their head, right? However, some things are stored in a way you can remember and use them, while others are impossible to consciously pull out.
Are you still with me?
Yeah, I think so. They're called conscious memories and subconscious memories. Both are memories, but you only have access to the conscious ones. I was contemplating if one could prove the existence of a subconscious thought system constantly using those memories as well. I'm not sure I understand. What happens if you prove that? Well, all I want to know is how things work.
Nagasaki looked out the window. The evening sun illuminated her red hair, making it look almost like flames.
Oh, that's right. The bird we saw yesterday is called a red-flanked bluetail. It's a winter bird that comes here from Shinkoku. You looked it up? There was a bird encyclopedia in the library. It made a brief mention of unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. Birds that travel long distances over the seasons have evolved so they can put half their brain to sleep while the other remains alert. Apparently, it's not just birds either. Dolphins and seals are also capable of sleeping with one of their eyes closed. That's convenient. I wonder if I could work 24 hours a day if I could pull that off.
As long as they abolish the overtime agreement of the Labor Standards Act.
It's actually quite interesting. Can such a thing really be possible?
Nagasaki inhaled a breath and smiled.
I wonder what one side of their brain thinks as the other sleeps, and if it's conscious of the memories of their dreams, or if the half that slept remembers what happened during the time the other half was awake.
Or, I don't remember anything from when I sleep, so I imagine they wouldn't either.
Is that so?
Feeling my hands grow cold, I sucked them under the blanket covering my lap. Nagasaki noticed and followed my motions with her gaze. Well, I think all fish do that, Tim. Fish and snakes sleep with their eyes open because they do not have eyelids.
What's your plan for today? I might just go back to my room and sleep.
You're going to sleep again? My vision suddenly grew dark as I stood up. Making sure not to panic, I lowered my head a bit and endured it.
I've been feeling really sleepy lately. I don't know if it's because I've changed beds, but I seem unable to get a proper rest.
If you remember your dreams, that means you didn't sleep well? Really? It's news to me. I remember all my dreams. The hallucinations might be one of the factors exhausting you. I saw Nagasaki hold out her hand, and after a few seconds of staring at it, I handed her the blanket.
I'm no longer seeing them, thanks.
Is that so?
What are you doing after this?
I have no plans.
Nagasaki?
Yeah?
You once said there existed another world in one's head.
Yeah, I did.
And Takako is there, isn't she?
Nagasaki slightly cocked her head, then nodded.
I was thinking about what kind of place it might be, and how Takako lived there.
And what conclusion did you come to? The branches in front of the window trembled. Nagasaki gave them a sidelong glance. There seemed to have been a bird there, but it had since flown away.
I don't know. Maybe she's seeing the past like I did during your hypnosis. Or maybe she feels like she's in a dream.
Both of those sound closer to a dream, but I believe it's much closer to the real world than you think.
You know what it's like?
Well, I can make an educated guess at least. Let's start from how it differs from reality. First, the passage of time must be quite vague, since you're creating the story from your subconsciousness. No one remembers every little detail that happens during the day.
But reality's like that as well, no?
Yep. So no one in your world would notice anything strange. And the things you forget or are unable to remember simply disappear without a trace.
Are there any other differences?
The sun rises in the west and sets in the east.
Why?
Sorry, I made it sound more confusing than I should have. It's because of how your eyes work. Your brain recognizes light as it strikes your retinas at the back of your eyes. However, since it passes through the lens in your eye, your brain actually gets an inverted image that also has left and right backwards. However, in your world, no one is seeing their surroundings with their eyes. As such, top and bottom, as well as right and left, are inverted.
That sounds weird. If the cause is physical, such as the eyes inverting things, then wouldn't we all perceive our surroundings the same way in both worlds?
No matter how I looked at it, Nagasaki's statement didn't make much sense. Besides, there was no means to check or test how things were supposed to work in that hypothetical world anyway. How could she be so certain?
You didn't just come up with all this on the spot, did you?
I gave Nagasaki an incredulous look. Oops, you got me. After that, Nagasaki accompanied me back to my room, then soon left, saying she had to return the blanket. All the people who live inside your head, what must their world look like? That's something that I want to think about. As soon as I mustered the willpower to get out of bed, I heard a knock on the door. I circled around the bed and turned the knob, opening the door. What greeted me was someone's forehead near the bottom of my field of view. It was Kozue holding a book.
Hello.
Here. I inspected the title of the book she gave me. It seemed to be an encyclopedia about plants and animals. I returned my gaze to Kozue and saw her looking somewhere behind my back.
Is this for me?
I asked. She looked up at me, her thin brows knitted. But after a few moments, Kozue seemed to have shifted her gaze back to the room. I realized it was the interior that seemed to have sparked her interest.
Would you like to see the inside of the room?
I opened the door wide and moved away from the doorway. Instead of going in, though, Kozue looked up at me again and asked if I wasn't going to sleep.
Oh, it's fine. It's still too early for bed anyway.
After a few seconds of hesitation, Kozue finally stepped into the room. She momentarily glanced back as I closed the door, but soon returned her gaze to the room, looking over the ceiling and the walls. As Kozue moved toward the cabinet, I picked up a cardigan from the dresser's chair and put it over my shoulders. I then sat down in the chair by the window and opened up the book she had brought. Flipping through a few pages, I saw introductions of various plants and animals, all illustrated with large, colorful pictures. The table of contents listed a number of different animal names. Though thick, the book was easy to carry in one hand. I imagined it was designed to allow one to quickly confirm things while out in the wilderness.
Do you like old things like this? Or, do you like old things like this? Not as much as you or Nane. Why do you ask? Few people ever come to stay here in the middle of nowhere. All of their regular customers have a thing for old mansions. I see. What do you think about old things? Well, I suppose it's like Nane said. You can trust them to serve you well, considering they haven't fallen apart after so many years of use.
Kozue picked up a transparent amber key holder from the dresser.
Don't take it while I'm still looking, I joked. These antiques also make you imagine all sorts of things. It's fun thinking about what kind of European lady might have once been reflected in this mirror of the past, or how the mirror even found its way here to begin with. It makes one wonder how the mirror must feel about reflecting a pair of black eyes and dark hair after seeing blonde hair and blue eyes all its life.
Kozue placed the key holder back on the dresser. Instead, she picked up a glass toy from it and sat down in the chair facing me. I'm getting the voices wrong.
Did you come here alone? She asked. Yes.
The glass toy had seaweed and fish painted on it. It was filled with water and small rings of various colors. There was also a pole inside, which to my understanding was used to catch those rings. Kozue pushed a button at the bottom of the case, which made the colored rings dance all over the case due to the artificial current.
Oh, that's nostalgic. There was a similar toy in the beauty salon I used to visit. Huh.
She pushed the button harder, trying to collect the rings on the edges, but instead ended up losing the one she had already caught. Oh, I know this. I remember this toy. Oh, wow, that's... I remember having one similar to that. She furrowed her brows. I shifted my gaze back to my book and turned to the page about winter.
Oh, almost forgot. Thanks for the other day, said Kozue with a certain abruptness. Don't worry about it. I had fun too.
I found a cute picture of a long-tailed tit. There were 4 of them on a long tree branch. They all looked like tiny white balls of fur with black spots for the eyes and beaks. The one on the far left was looking straight at the camera. With its head tilted to the side, it almost appeared befuddled. Feeling someone's gaze on me, I looked up from the book. Kozue had stopped playing with her rings and was looking at me. The irises of her big eyes gave me a long, hard stare as if trying to penetrate my very soul.
Is something the matter? You're weird.
I'd never seen irises as light in color as hers. Combined with the refined features, Kozue's gaze appeared almost uncanny. Most people would have trouble meeting a gaze like hers.
Me? Really? But I was told the same thing, that I'm weird. Who told you that? My uncle. And my physics teacher.
I tried imagining the context where that could have happened, but nothing concrete came to mind.
What do you think is weird about you? I don't know. Then what do you think is weird about me? You're like me, yet you also keep talking to me, and you have this odd, mysterious feel about you.
Kozue was a bit too forward for her own good, and her glare could occasionally be intimidating, but given her cute looks, approaching and talking to her didn't feel all that odd to me. but perhaps my trip to a faraway place had left me in a state of mild euphoria, which could have impeded my judgment. I honestly couldn't tell.
There are all sorts of people in the world.
I told her that I wasn't that weird. Kozue, however, seemed hesitant to believe me. I feel like Sachiko's the least weird person in this whole story, if I'm honest. As I strode through the inner yard, escorting Kozue outside, I spotted Nane through the cafeteria's window. Nane seemed deep in thought, staring at the surface of the table. She failed to notice me, even as I approached the window. I lightly knocked on the window glass. Though initially startled, she turned to me with a smile. She made a gesture, inviting me inside. As I had no other plans anyway, I entered the building through the side door and continued to the cafeteria. Oh, what's she up to? Inside, Nane was examining a large piece of paper, a floor plan of sorts, spread out on the table along with a bunch of pictures depicting furniture.
I bought some new furniture, so I was thinking of redecorating a few rooms. I see.
Upon closer inspection, I realized that the large piece of paper was the floor plan of the mansion, complete with Nane's hand-drawn sketches of each individual room's interior. She also had the pictures of furniture aligned to each room, making the floor plan easier to understand. Some of them seemed to have been taken back to their home countries, while others were shot in this very mansion.
How do you want to change it? I felt our lobby was a bit too empty, so I was thinking to place a bookcase there. And these two rooms have too much of a country atmosphere compared to the rest, so I want to make them more traditionally Western.
Nane showed me the pictures of the room.
I see. And these are the new furniture.
Yeah! Nane nodded as I looked over the pictures.
Do you often do this kind of redecoration? Once a year or so. It's more like a hobby of mine, to be honest. A hobby? Yeah, it's like a hobby. I'm turning this place into something closer to my ideal. What kind of ideal is that exactly? Well, in short, an old Western mansion like the ones you see in movies. The very first owner of this place was actually a Westerner, and it used to be the exact style I like. Unfortunately, the next owner thought the place felt old and dusty, so he decided to replace all the furniture with more modern stuff. While it wasn't particularly ugly or anything, my mother took over the mansion before he changed everything, so now we're stuck in this weird transitional phase. I want to unify the atmosphere to match either of those two styles, and if possible, I'd prefer the original old-fashioned one. I see. I mean, most of our guests are into historical things like that. Why else would they visit a place out here in the middle of nowhere? Nane returned to her work, rearranging the pictures while mumbling to herself. Maybe I should change the chair and the shelf in this room and place the remaining table in this one. Like this.
Nane rearranged the pictures and gave me a what do you think kind of look.
I think that sounds nice, but don't you think those tables and chairs are far too big for this room? Depending on where you place the chairs, you might have trouble opening the doors of this wardrobe.
Nane gave the floor plan another look.
You have a point. I guess I can't change the table in this room after all. What do you think about this new reading corner?
Said reading corner was situated in an extra space in the lobby. It consisted of a small bookshelf, a small knee-high round table, and a largish one-seater sofa.
I think it's nice, but maybe a bit too functional if you're going for atmosphere. For example, if you put a shelf against this wall in between the entrance and the corridor, use this tall writing desk instead of the small table, then put your sofa here. Don't you think it looks better this way?
I rearranged her pictures.
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely looking good. It's like a small study now. It makes me want to add a bit more miscellaneous fluff though, like a desk lamp and such.
She pulled out an album with pictures of all sorts of decorations.
You seem to be enjoying this. I am! I love stuff like this. I enjoy imagining how my guests would use them and such. For example, this chair in the lobby is real comfortable. It's perfect for reading in the afternoon with some light coming through the stained glass. It's calming enough to make you forget the passage of time and let you get immersed in your book or newspaper or whatever. Once the sun begins to set, the light falling on you from this angle will serve as a reminder of what time it is. But you already have that big clock in the lobby. It's going to be so comfortable you'll forget about it. I tried to recall the last time I focused so hard on my reading that I completely blocked out the sounds of the outside world, but soon gave up and just gave her a patronizing okay. I'm serious! Well, I understand what you're trying to say, more or less.
Really? She gave me a skeptical look, but her expression soon changed.
Oh, that's right. You're a professional as far as design is concerned. I guess you would understand a creative spirit, she added. It wasn't me, but a friend of mine in kindergarten built a waterway in the sandbox to amuse herself.
Huh? Nane knitted her eyebrows and gave me a puzzled look.
You dig a bunch of little ditches in the sandbox like a labyrinth, then use a gardening hose to fill them with water.
I showed her the size of the ditches with my fingers.
The ones who had to pay the water bill probably weren't too amused.
I nodded.
You bet. It was a sandbox behind our apartment, and the landlord was fuming when he found out what she was doing. Apparently, the park behind our building was also his property, and he was responsible for water bills. Anyway, you can make tunnels, mountains, and lakes in the sand like that. When I asked her why she went to such lengths for a simple game, she said she made it so that the tadpoles and water striders wouldn't be bored. I actually did spot some water striders in her waterways. Most of them flew away soon after, but one continued along the waterway, even passing under the tunnel.
Aww.
I think I get the picture, but I'm not sure how to feel about being compared to that.
Nane made a complex expression, smiling with her lips and eyes while also knitting her eyebrows in a display of embarrassment.
I suppose so. I was thinking of using an example with a deserted island or a diorama, but chose a more unusual one instead.
I'm kind of curious about that deserted island now.
But that girl who made the waterway in the sand, well, she later turned out to be quite talented in the field of design. I guess that makes it better. I do admit this place is a bit like my miniature garden or sandbox. I think everyone has something like that, just on a different scale. I guess so. Exactly what kind of Western mansion do you want to turn this place into? I'm trying to recreate the style of when this mansion was actually used as a normal residence. My mother showed me some old pictures of the place, and I get totally enthralled by them. Back then, though, I wasn't entirely sure what made me feel that way. And now?
Nane paused to think for a few seconds.
Well, one thing I could tell is that it was completely different from what we have now. I mean, back in those days, the Western design incorporated a variety of styles, sometimes mixing Renaissance, neoclassical, Vienna secession, and other approaches. I think one of the charms that got me was how it seemed to favor style over functionality. Our modern architecture copied the functional parts of Western style, but they valued artistic merit just as much as convenience. What we currently have is the result of an attempt to speedily rebuild Japan after the war, as well as make sure our cities don't fall apart during earthquakes. The epitome of efficiency and minimal costs.
Smiling, Nane snapped her fingers as I replied. Okay, that was whatever.
That's exactly right. All this historical background is precisely what I love about old architecture. The current design of Western mansions was born as a result of the trial and error approach of various artisans who all had their own ideas about what the perfect work should look like. When you stand in an old room like that, you cannot help but feel the anxiety and anticipation of the early modern age. However, just as you said,
These kinds of mansions stopped being built after the war, giving way for more functional structures. Our cities took a completely different shape compared to what those artists of old envisioned. It's like the war had made our paths diverge. So, when I'm in a place like this, I get the sense of being abandoned by time. A vague and poignant emptiness, similar to watching dinosaur bones in a museum. The strong and deep emotions of old have seeped into the very walls of such places, silently drifting in the air all around people like us, ignorant of time. Anyway, this feeling is precisely what draws me to antiques. I imagine that must have been pretty hard to understand, sorry. No, I think I can empathize with that on some level. Whew! I kinda just blurted out whatever popped into my mind, so I'm glad it ended up being some iota of sense. It's a complex feeling, but I think I've experienced it myself. Nice. I obviously didn't think about it that deeply as a child, but the feeling I got when I saw those pictures was something similar, I think. I was seeing it for my first time, yet for some reason I felt somewhat nostalgic and lonely. I guess I've liked complex feelings like that ever since I was young. Anyway, I ended up going off on a tangent there, but basically I want to turn this mansion into the kind of place that gives me the same kind of feeling as those pictures. I'm not one for flattery, but I like this place. Thanks. I tried, she added with a smile. But it definitely doesn't feel complete yet. There's still a bunch of rooms that feel like they could use some work, especially when you compare them to those pictures. Atmosphere is not easy to recreate. Yeah. After all this, it's usually the unique sensitivities of the age that translate into peculiarities of design. Perhaps it's impossible to perfectly recreate it to begin with. However, if I wait for the place to age naturally, I'll end up 6 feet under before I achieve anything I'm satisfied with. So you're planning to do as much as you can for now? Yep, Nane answered, flashing a happy smile. Anyway, will you help me on this, now that you've heard my story and everything? Sure, to the best of my abilities at least. I sat down in the chair facing Nane. She too lowered herself into the nearby seat. We spent some time discussing the layout of the rooms in the mansion. We kept rearranging pictures and sketching new plans. We exchanged ideas, nodded to each other, or shook our heads. Whenever there was a prolonged period of silence, Nane would start humming a song under her breath. A song that most people had likely heard at one point in their lives. At first I didn't pay it much attention, but the more she repeated that one phrase... Why does Mary only have half sheep? Oh, why does Mary only ever have sheep? Huh? I guess that's just the first thing that came to mind of whoever wrote it. There's actually a story behind that. There was a girl named Mary who had a little lamb. That's an actual story. Her father wrote the poem. Now that you asked, I wonder who Mary even is. She's a girl with a sheep, a character in some Western folktale. The song was actually from a folktale? Mary Sawyer takes a sheep to the school, which causes a commotion. Called it. Seriously? I always thought Mary was the name of the sheep. If that was the case, you'd end up with a sheep owning a sheep. I guess so. That's why I thought it was weird. I guess I'm stupid, Nane chuckled to herself. I couldn't help chuckling myself. I'll bet Auntie doesn't know either. Let's tell her later. I feel like she would know. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Nane returned her eyes to the pictures and resumed her work. I started moving my hands as well. I just don't know how much more is part of this arc. So I'm gonna stop here. Like, if there's only like two screens left before the end of the chapter or whatever, then so be it. That's just where we're going to have to end it. Okay, that was day 9 of SeaBed, a Yuri visual novel. Wow. So not a lot actually happened. We did get that really creepy ghost story, though. Ugh. So, yeah. Thanks, Demlord, and for the first time, Dare Tomatum Toaster for being here. Shout out to the lurkers as well. Oh, don't worry about it, Dem. So, this week I will be playing Omen of Sorrow to celebrate the game's release on PlayStation 5 on both Tuesday and Friday. So, something to look forward to. And, of course, I will be continuing my playthrough of SeaBed next Sunday. Day 10 next week. Wow. Making progress on this game. So, hope everyone has a good week. On behalf of East Asia Soft, I have been Skull. Have yourselves a great day and a great week, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.